I didn't think it would end this way.
End? No, the journey doesn't end here.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the best fantasy sequels ever made.
Take her away, Ian.
Yeah, take it away, Ernie. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Number 10, Mary Poppins Returns.
I thought we'd never see you again.
It is wonderful to see you.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
For decades, the musical fantasy film Mary Poppins delighted children across the globe as the titular character floated into the dreary lives of a London family, giving them magic and color. Plans for a sequel had been in place since the original's release in 1964. However, disagreements with the book's original author P.L. Travers, Julie Andrews' acting hiatus, and a number of other issues kept the film mired in developmental hell.
Why do you always complicate things that are really quite simple?
Finally, in 2018, and with the blessing of the Travers estate, a sequel was produced, with Emily Blunt cast as Poppins. Returns recaptured what had managed to make the original so great with stunning visuals combining live action and animation, creative musical numbers, and a strong emotional through line. Number 9, Ghostbusters II.
Mr. Mayor, we're here tonight because a psychomagnetheric slime flow of immense proportions is building up beneath this city.
Psycho what?
The original Ghostbusters managed to combine urban fantasy and comedy by having a talented cast of 80s stars face off against a supernatural threat in New York City. The sequel doubled down on both of those elements, with almost the entire primary cast returning and a new fantasy-themed villain much more prominently featured.
On a mountain of skulls in the castle of pain, I sat on a throne of blood.
The baddie in question was Vigo the Carpathian, a despotic sorcerer from 16th century Europe who was killed in a way reminiscent of the real Rasputin. As Vigo noted, however, death is but a door, and his soul would take up residence in a painting. Centuries later, the Ghostbusters went head-to-head with Vigo, reuniting after the events of the first film, once again saving New York from paranormal disaster.
You think there's a connection between this Vigo character and the... slime?
Number 8, The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian.
Things never happen the same way twice, dear one.
Many of the greatest fantasy films of all time are based on iconic literary sagas from the 20th century, and The Chronicles of Narnia is no exception. The first film, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, was a favorite of both the novel's fans and newcomers, and the screenplay for a sequel was being written even before that film's release.
Have you forgotten the laws upon which Narnia was built?
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Much of the original cast returned, including the voice of Liam Neeson as the Lion Aslan. It also introduced a slew of new characters, including, of course, Prince Caspian himself, played by Ben Barnes. The sequel deepened the themes from the first film, with the Pevensies experiencing grief and confusion, and growing larger in scope and scale than its predecessor.
What's the matter, boy? Too cowardly to take a life.
It's not mine to take.
Number 7, Gremlins 2: The New Batch. Almost as much of a parody of the original Gremlins film as it was a sequel to it, returning director Joe Dante had carte blanche this time around to make a film as anarchic as he saw fit. Describing it as, quote, one of the more unconventional studio pictures ever, Dante sought to use the film to lampoon the very idea of sequels with absurdism and meta jokes.
Creatures. Is that accurate?
Fourth wall breaks featured prominently in the movie, as did cameos of everyone from Hulk Hogan to film critic Leonard Maltin, and even the Looney Tunes. None of this meant that the urban fantasy from the original had disappeared, as the lovable turned mischievous creatures were back.
Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not. Fun, but in no sense civilized.
Number 6, Pirates of the Caribbean: At World's End.
Sometimes things come back, mate. We live in proof, you and me.
After After Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl was an overwhelming critical and commercial success, 2 sequels were commissioned and shot back-to-back. The first sequel, Dead Man's Chest, amped up the fantasy elements from the original, with stunning CGI characters like the tragic villain Davy Jones.
Life is cruel. Why should the afterlife be any different?
At World's End served as an epic conclusion to that original trilogy, with thrilling set pieces including the beginning when characters travel to the afterlife, and the conclusion featuring a grandiose battle between ships inside a raging maelstrom. Like any good fantasy, characters realize their epic destiny, particularly Will Turner, who began the first movie as a humble blacksmith's apprentice and ended up as captain of the mythical Flying Dutchman.
On the wheel then, Mr. Turner. Aye, Captain Turner.
Number 5. How to Train Your Dragon 2.
So what do you think, bud? You want to give this another shot? Toothless, it'll be fine.
Set 5 years after the events of the first film, the teenage Vikings that befriended dragons had grown into young adults and began to shape a new world where they coexisted with creatures they once hated. Appropriately, the film dealt with more mature and often darker themes, with returning writer-director Dean DeBlois citing The Empire Strikes Back as a major inspiration for the second entry in the franchise.
You can't just say something like that and run off. You're my mother? I mean, what the?
The film emphasized expanding the world beyond what had been seen in the original, with visuals of icy landscape alongside fiery dragons becoming something to behold. It, along with the third and final entry, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, made this an animated fantasy trilogy for the ages.
You've looked after us for long enough. Time to look after yourselves.
Number 4. Hellboy 2: The Golden Army.
It is said that at the dawn of time, man, beast, and all magical beings lived together under Aeglin, the Father Tree.
While the first Hellboy film directly adapted its plotline from Mike Mignola's comics, the sequel was a new and original story featuring the character. This time around, director Guillermo del Toro put an even greater emphasis on the fantasy elements, drawing heavily on fairy tales. Those fairy tale elements were combined with urban fantasy, giving us terrifying tooth fairies and a sprawling troll market beneath the Brooklyn Bridge.
Gentlemen, welcome to the Troll Market.
The fantasy creatures were horrific yet beautiful in a way that only Del Toro could provide. Its plot involves elven royalty vying for control of the titular Golden Army, an indestructible force, leading to a powerful and emotional final confrontation.
Sorry, pal. I win. You live.
Number 3. Shrek 2.
Stop, Ogre!
I have misjudged you.
Join the club, we've got jackets.
It's rare for a beloved children's film to be surpassed by its successor, but that is exactly what Shrek 2 did, scoring higher with critics than its already well-received first entry. Continuing with the fairy tale parodies established in the first film, the now married couple of Shrek and Fiona travel to her kingdom, of course called Far, Far Away.
So, you still think this was a good idea?
Of course.
Along with the returning personalities from the first, 2 introduced a number of fairy tale characters into the franchise, including the fairy godmother, Prince Charming, and of course, Puss in Boots. The swashbuckling cat, voiced by Zorro himself, Antonio Banderas, quickly became a fan favorite. Finally, the film featured arguably the franchise's best scene, with the heroes storming the castle set to I Need a Hero.
All right, big fella, let's crash this party.
Number 2. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
The ones that love us never really leave us. And you can always find them in here.
Already a global phenomenon because of the original novels and popular first 2 films, the third Harry Potter film saw a major turn in the series. With Alfonso Cuarón taking over as director, the movie adopted a more serious tone, much like the book on which it was based.
If you want to kill Harry, you'll have to kill us too.
No, only one would die tonight.
Then it'll be you!
Working on the film's visual effects, Industrial Light and Magic received an Academy Award nomination, as did John Williams for his iconic score, which has become a fantasy staple. The trio of young stars, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint, did some of their best work, as did the adults. Along with the ever-amazing Alan Rickman were new arrivals Gary Oldman and Michael Gambon replacing the late Richard Harris as Dumbledore.
Well?
He's free. We did it. did what? Good night.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
I could do that.
It easily could have been The Two Towers topping this list, as that film increased the scope of the epic series beyond the first film by splitting its characters into groups, each with a truly legendary quest. However, the ending of the trilogy ultimately takes the prize, wrapping up perfectly everything that the first 2 installments had laid out.
We set out to save the Shire, Sam. And it has been saved. But not for me.
In Return of the King, battles are fought, love is culminated, morals are tested, and evil is vanquished, even if some scars remain. The film became the first fantasy film to ever win Best Picture at the Oscars, completing a historic sweep and taking home all 11 awards it was nominated for. Few, if any, films have so satisfyingly wrapped up a trilogy.
My friends.
You bow to no one.
Did your favorite fantasy sequel make the list? Let us know which was your favorite in the comments below.
The horn of Helm Hammerhand shall sound in the deep one last time.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.